Hi you guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Patience. To my existing subscribers, welcome back. If this is your first time here, be sure to click that subscribe button and that notification bell so you can continue to indulge in the Hot Bella experience. In today's video, I am going to be creating this beautiful look using the new Impulsive palette from Melt Cosmetics. This is a gorgeous palette, and this was truly an impulsive buy on my part. I have already purchased shadows from Melt once before, and I really like the pigmentation of the Melt eyeshadows, but the whole palette concept from Melt is a little bit different for me. I have an appreciation for it, but it is different. The first time that I purchased a Melt palette, it was the Gemini palette, and this is what this palette looks like. You guys have also seen me do a look using this palette, but I was extremely impressed by the color story of this palette, and this palette is also on par with all of the characteristics of eyeshadows that are coming from Melt. That being the extreme pigment and the beautiful shades and colors that Melt has to offer. Look at this palette. This palette is absolutely gorgeous. When I pulled it out for this video, I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot about this. I've got to create another look using this palette. This palette is absolutely gorgeous. I also purchased one of the Z palettes from Melt. So my plan was to purchase an additional stack, and this palette has compartments on the top and the bottom of it. So if you were to close this up without having something in between, you would run the risk of maybe cross-contaminating some of the shadows. This Z palette also came with this little shield, which is very nice. So again, my plan was to purchase another stack. This stack that you see here is from the She's in Party stack from Melt. It's a beautiful, beautiful color combination of eyeshadows. It comes with 2 mattes and 2 shimmers, but it's absolutely gorgeous. So again, that was my plan. My plan was to continue to build out my Melt collection, to add some more stacks into my collection. But then they threw me a curveball when they came out with the palettes. I love their palettes. I love Melt as a brand. I love their products. But this Impulsive palette is extremely unique in so many different ways. Take a look at this palette. It's got some gorgeous shades in it, and at first thought I said, okay, some of these shades may be dupes of some of the shades that are in their stacks. But I compared Boss Lady with one of the colors that I just showed you guys that's in the She's in Party stack, and there is definitely a difference. I also compared the greens here in this Impulsive palette to the greens that are in the Gemini palette, and even though they may look slightly similar, they are very, very different. I think the name Impulsive for this palette is very befitting for this eyeshadow palette, because one would think, you know, I'm not going to be able to use that. The colors are not going to be something that I can use on an everyday basis. But as you guys can see, I was able to take some of the colors out of this palette, which can be very intimidating, and create a very soft drama type of look. So yeah, so that's what I've done today, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So I wanted to also mention, as I was filming this video, I realized that I did not turn my external mic on. So the audio may be slightly off on this video, but I couldn't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, this look turned out so gorgeous, I had to share it with you guys. So if you guys would like to see how I created this look, then keep watching. My skin has been moisturized. I used the Confidence in Cream from IT Cosmetics. I also used some of the Fasali Skin Tune Blur as a primer. And I also followed up with a little bit of my Tatcha Luminous Dewy Skin Mist. So this is a product from Tatcha, and I am using this because I'm going to be using a matte foundation. So I wanted to add an additional layer of moisture into my skin. And the first shade that I'm going to use out of this Impulsive palette is the shade called Poppin' Bottles. And I'm going to use this as my brow bone highlight. And this shade looks to be a little bit more like a topper, but that's okay. I think it's still going to make for a really pretty brow bone highlight. It's a gorgeous brow bone highlight. I forgot to mention too, I also prepped my eyelids with the P. Louise eyeshadow base. Poppin' Bottles is really pretty. And I'm using the shade Bold as my transition shade. So I'm just going to build this up to my desired intensity. I like that. I'm using Boss Lady in my crease area. If you're not familiar with the Melt eyeshadows, I honestly have to say that you will experience some kick up in the pan, but that is common with the Melt eyeshadows, and it's really not an indication of the quality or the lack thereof. It just means that you've got a lot of pigment to deal with and that can be a good thing. So just remember to tap off your brush before you actually start applying the shade on your lid, and that'll kind of help to ensure that you don't get any fallout onto your face or minimize the fallout. Alright, I like that, and I'm going to go back into Bold once again just to kind of blend out any harsh lines that I may have. And I'm not adding any additional product to my brush right now, I'm just using whatever's remaining on there just to kind of smooth this out. I like it. And now I'm going to use the shade No Regrets, and it is one of the shimmer shades out of the Impulsive palette from Melt, and I am going to spritz my brush just a little bit to use that shimmer shade. I'm not going to carve out my lid, I'm just going to go in straight away with this shimmer shade. I'm not getting as much kick up in the pan when I'm using this shimmer shade as I did with the matte shades. But it's still very, very pretty, and I wanted to not carve out my lids just so I can get a better idea, or get a good idea of how these particular shades are going to look on my eyelid. So I know that the Melt eyeshadows are the bomb, but I want to see what this palette can really do. So I didn't carve out my lids this time. And I'm going to go back into Boss Lady once again. That's the darker shade that I have in my crease. I'm going to use just a little bit of that, again, just to kind of soften this edge up just a little bit. And now that I've softened that up just a little bit, I want to use the shade Warehouse Party, and I'm going to use that to blend the Boss Lady and the No Regrets together on my lid. I'll have to try this palette again using my silicone eyeshadow applicator instead of a brush, because I find that with a lot of the shimmer shades in the palettes, not just Melt but just eyeshadow palettes in general, that silicone eyeshadow applicator really works out well. It has a way of giving me the control that I want, and also it just places it just right. It's an alternative to using the finger, so I think that's why it works so well. That looks good. And I could go back into Boss Lady just to deepen up that crease area just a little bit, but I want to do something a little different. I want to try out as many shades as I possibly can with this look. So I'm going to try going into Dream Big, and I'm going to use that to give myself a little bit more definition in the area where I have manipulated my natural crease line. Alright, I'm liking that. Even though the Impulsive palette from Melt is an extremely pigmented palette, and it comes with some very interesting colors in the palette, I wanted to keep the eye look for today really simple because I wanted to see just how user-friendly this palette would be for my mature skin, and also see if it was going to be suitable for me to use if I'm just trying to do a simple eye look. You know, if I don't want it to be too dramatic, I don't want it to be too overly colorful, but I still want the pigmentation to be there. So this is a very simple look. I think it turned out really good. I'm going to go ahead and add my liner and my lashes. So I've added my liner and my lashes, and now I'm going to move on to my complexion. And I am going to be trying out my Juvia's Place I Am Magic foundation once again. I am in the color Somalia. I wanted to come back and try this foundation again. I've done some color correcting this time around, and yeah, I'm going to use the Juvia's Place foundation. So it is a full coverage foundation. It is matte. So as I mentioned before, I've already added in some additional moisture by applying the Tatcha Luminous Dewy Skin Mist. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this foundation on my mixing palette. It already has some powder on it, but yeah, I'm just going to take a small amount, and I am going to apply this foundation all over. This is a beautiful foundation, and it only took that small amount to cover my entire face. And now I'm going to be using two of the concealers from Juvia's Place. This is in the shade 12, and this one is going to be closer to my skin complexion, and this one is in the shade 15. This one is a little bit lighter. So I'm going to be mixing the two of these to get my perfect highlight concealer shade. And I'm just setting all the areas where I have applied the concealer. I'm going to use another concealer from Juvia's Place, and this is in the shade number 6. And I'm going to use my beauty sponge just to blend it in. Very nice. I'm setting my face with another Pro Filt'r setting powder from Fenty Beauty, and this is in the color Honey. I'm going to add a little bit of bronzer, and I'm going to use the shade Coconutty from Fenty Beauty. I'm going to add just a little bit on top of where I have contoured my nose, just to kind of set that in place. And I'm going to be using another product from Fenty Beauty, and this is one of their Kilowatt highlighters. I'm going to use the Ginger Binge as my blush, and then I'm going to use the Moscow Mule as my highlight. And now it's into the Moscow Mule, which is like pat out. And now I'm going to smoke out my waterline. And I said that I was going to try to keep this look as simple as possible, just to kind of see how much soft drama I could get from this Impulsive palette from Melt. But I've got to do a little something. So I think I am going to smoke out my waterline, and I'm going to use this blue color right here. And this shade is called Tipsy. So I'm going to use that for my waterline. We're going to go back into Poppin' Bottles, and I'm just blending that into the Tipsy, which is that blue color that I already have down on my waterline. I'm going to line my lips using my MAC lip pencil in Chestnut. I'll line and fill in my lips. And then I'm going to use one of the lip glosses that I have here from Dominique Cosmetics. This was an item that came in my Boxy Luxe box. And I think this look is done. As usual, Melt has come through and delivered high quality, pigmented, buttery shadows in this Impulsive palette. The packaging of this eyeshadow palette is very unique. However, I can't say that it would necessarily be travel friendly. I did encounter some kick up in the pan when using the matte eyeshadows in this palette, but that is typical of the matte eyeshadows that come from Melt. I hope you guys liked this video, and if you did, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.